I used to think gratitude was just something people said at Thanksgiving, a polite phrase, a social habit, nothing more. But everything changed the day I hit rock bottom. I was sitting alone in my room, full of aches, full of regrets, wondering how many years I had left. Then something unexpected happened. I picked up an old notebook and started writing one sentence a day, just one thing I was thankful for. That tiny act, that simple shift in focus, transformed my health, my relationships, and even how my body healed. Today, I'll share the truth. Gratitude isn't just feel-good fluff. It's medicine for your heart, your brain, and your lifespan. Here's how I discovered it, and how you can too, even if you've lost almost everything. The day gratitude saved me. When nothing else worked, how I hit my lowest point, and how one small shift in mindset gave me back my will to live. They say life is precious, but at one point, I stopped believing that. I remember the exact day it happened. A rainy Tuesday morning, gray sky, cold tea on the table, and a deep ache in my knees that made it hard to stand. I was 67, recently retired, and I should have felt free. But instead, I felt lost. My children were busy with their lives. My phone had been silent for 2 days. My back hurt from too much sitting, and my thoughts hurt from too much silence. My life felt heavy, like I had nothing left to look forward to. I sat in my old recliner, staring at the window, and asked myself a question I never thought I'd ask. Is this it? Is this all there is? It wasn't a cry for help. It was quiet, just a tired whisper in my mind, but it was real. The spark I once had gone. I wasn't ill, I wasn't broke, I wasn't even alone, but I was emotionally empty, drained, disconnected, and that's when something strange happened. A notebook, a pen, and a chance. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was desperation, maybe it was divine, but I pulled open the drawer of my nightstand and found an old notebook half filled with grocery lists and to-do items. I flipped to a blank page. I didn't know why. I wasn't planning to write anything deep, but for some reason, I wrote this. I'm thankful the rain stopped just now. That was it. One line, one moment, one quiet shift. The next morning, I did it again. I'm thankful my tea was warm today. It felt silly, almost childish, but something about it made me pause. For those few seconds, my mind wasn't focused on what was wrong. It was focused on something right, however small, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt present. The ripple effect begins over the next few days. I made it a habit. Wake up, sit down, write one thing I was thankful for. At first, they were tiny things. The neighbors smiled at me, my back didn't hurt as much today. I had a full night's sleep, but after a week, something started to shift. Inside me, I noticed more, heard more, felt more. The birds outside weren't just background noise, they were music again. My morning tea wasn't just a drink, it was warmth in my hands. A moment of peace. My aches and pains were still there, but they didn't own me the way they used to. And that hollow emptiness, it began to fade. Gratitude started rewiring my brain. What I didn't know then, but later learned, was that gratitude changes your brain. Literally, neuroscientists have shown that regularly practicing gratitude activates the brain's reward system, increasing serotonin and dopamine, the same chemicals that antidepressants target. It lowers cortisol, your stress hormone, and improves sleep, mood, and even inflammation levels. I wasn't just feeling better, my body was actually healing. My brain was reconnecting pathways that had been dimmed by sadness and isolation, and I was doing it with nothing more than a pen, paper, and a few honest thoughts. I started talking to people again. Something else surprising happened. I found myself more open, more willing to connect. I struck up a conversation with my neighbor while checking the mail. I called an old friend just to say hello. I even smiled at the young boy at the pharmacy who reminded me of my grandson. People responded, warmly, kindly, and suddenly, I didn't feel so invisible anymore. Gratitude didn't just change how I felt, it changed how I showed up in the world, and the world responded in kind. From darkness to direction. After about 3 weeks of writing one grateful thought per day, I realized I hadn't had a bad day in almost a month. Not because nothing went wrong, but because I had retrained my mind to see what was right first. That shift was powerful. Life didn't feel like something I was enduring. It felt like something I was part of again. I added a new habit. Before I went to bed, I'd whisper one thing I appreciated from that day, even if the day had been long or hard, even if I didn't feel like it, and almost always, I could find something, a warm meal, a kind word, a quiet moment. And those moments became my medicine. One simple rule that changed everything. Here's the rule I gave myself, and the one I'd offer to anyone reading this. No matter how bad the day, find one thing worth writing down. Not a paragraph, not a journal, just one line, one truth, one acknowledgement of something good, however small, however fleeting. That practice, simple as it was, saved me. Truly. Gratitude didn't change my circumstances, it changed me. Still have bad days. I still feel lonely sometimes. But aches and the worries haven't disappeared. But I'm no longer drowning in them, because now I have a lifeline, a way to anchor myself to hope, to clarity, to meaning. And it starts with gratitude. Every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Final thought. The spark returned today. I am 71. I start and end every day with a line of gratitude. I've filled 3 notebooks since that first rainy morning. I never would have guessed that a simple notebook and a few honest words would be the thing that gave me back my life. But it did. So if you're feeling tired, stuck, invisible, or numb, try this. Just once. One sentence. One breath of thankfulness. It might seem small, but sometimes it's the smallest things that lead to the biggest changes. What gratitude actually does to your body, it's not just in your head. I thought emotions were separate from health, until I saw what gratitude did to my blood pressure, sleep, and even my immune system. I'll admit it. I used to think all this positive thinking talk was a little fluffy. Sure, being thankful felt good emotionally, but I never thought it could actually change my body. Emotions were in the head. I believed health was in the body. 2 separate worlds. I couldn't have been more wrong. What I discovered first by experience, and later through research, was that gratitude doesn't just lighten your mood. It changes your chemistry. It improves your heart, your immune system, your brain, even your sleep. And the best part? It costs nothing, takes minutes, and works at any age, especially after 65. Let me take you through how this simple act of noticing what's right did more for me than some pills ever could. My heart started to relax. I've battled mild, high blood pressure for years. Nothing dramatic, but enough to keep me on meds and regular checkups. About 2 months into my daily gratitude practice, just writing 1 or 2 thankful thoughts a day, my doctor took my blood pressure, leaned back and said, "Have you been doing anything different?" "Yes," I said. "I've been relaxing more, focusing on what I have, not what I've lost." He nodded. "Well, whatever it is, keep doing it. Your pressure's improved." I laughed at the time. "So gratitude lowers blood pressure?" I joked. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Actually, yes. There's science behind that." Turns out, he wasn't joking. Gratitude activates the parasympathetic nervous system, what's often called the rest and digest mode. It tells your body, you're safe, you're okay. And when that message repeats daily, your heart responds. It beats more calmly, blood vessels relax. Cortisol, your stress hormone, drops. And over time, your entire cardiovascular system feels the relief. I slept better, and deeper sleep used to be my enemy. I'd toss and turn, replaying regrets and worries. Sometimes I'd stare at the ceiling until 3 a.m., my mind racing, through old arguments, money fears, or aches that suddenly felt louder in the dark. But when I started ending my day by writing down one thing I was thankful for, something shifted. My bedtime routine changed, not physically, but emotionally. Instead of closing the day with tension, I closed it with peace. Gratitude rewires your thoughts at night. It reduces intrusive thinking, lowers anxiety, and helps the brain settle down faster. Multiple studies have shown that people who practice gratitude before bed fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up more refreshed. I didn't change my mattress. I didn't start taking melatonin. All I did was shift my focus from fear to thanks, and sleep came back to me. Soft and healing. My brain became sharper and happier. I'll never forget the day I noticed it. I was reading the newspaper, something I'd done for years, and realized I wasn't having to reread sentences anymore. My mind wasn't foggy. I could focus again. I wasn't forgetting where I left my keys as often. I started remembering people's names again. Conversations felt smoother, clearer. I thought maybe it was just coincidence. But the more I looked into it, the more I learned. Gratitude literally strengthens parts of the brain responsible for memory, decision-making, and emotional regulation. Researchers have used MRI scans to study the brains of people who regularly practice gratitude. They show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the same area responsible for planning, judgment, and self-control. That means gratitude doesn't just make you feel good, it helps you think better. It also boosts dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good chemicals that combat depression and anxiety. Looking back, I realize now that those early weeks of writing in my notebook didn't just lift my spirits. They were, quite literally, rebuilding my brain. I got sick less often. This one surprised me most. I used to catch colds every winter like clockwork. Sometimes they'd linger for weeks. I assumed it was just part of getting older. But that first year I committed to gratitude. Something unusual happened. I didn't get sick, not even once. I didn't make any major changes to my diet. I didn't suddenly become a gym junkie. What I did do was write, reflect, and stay emotionally grounded. And apparently, that was enough. Studies from Harvard and UC Davis show that people who regularly practice gratitude have stronger immune responses, fewer inflammatory markers, and lower risks of illness. Why? Because chronic stress suppresses your immune system. Gratitude, by reducing stress, lets it function properly again. Put simply, a grateful mind helps create a healthy body. My relationships improved, and so did my hormones. Of the biggest health benefits I didn't expect came in the form of better connections. When I started saying thank you more and meaning it, people responded differently. My conversations got warmer. My friendships deepened. Even small interactions, like with the mailman or the grocery clerk, became more enjoyable? I didn't realize it, but every expression of gratitude was flooding my body with oxytocin, the love hormone. It's what makes us feel bonded, safe, and connected. And do you know what oxytocin does? It lowers blood pressure, reduces pain, enhances trust, and even helps wounds heal faster. So when I began focusing on thankfulness, I wasn't just improving my relationships, I was changing my chemistry. Gratitude, the most powerful, overlooked health habit after 65. We're told to eat right, take our pills, move more, get enough sleep. All great advice, but rarely, so rarely does anyone say, be thankful. It could save your life. And yet, that's exactly what it did for me. I didn't realize how much power I had in my own mind, how one shift in perspective could ripple through every system in my body, gently restoring what I thought was gone. I still write in my gratitude notebook every morning. Sometimes it's big things. I'm thankful my granddaughter called. Sometimes it's small. The sunlight felt good on my hands today. But every time I write, I feel it. My heart softens. My breath deepens. My body relaxes. That's not magic. That's biology. That's gratitude. From pills to perspective, how I reduced my stress without medication. Doctors gave me prescriptions. Gratitude gave me peace. Here's how it worked. If someone had told me 5 years ago that a shift in my mindset would help lower my blood pressure and calm my nerves more effectively than any pill, I would have chuckled politely and walked away. You see, I believed in science, not positive thinking. I took my pills at the same time every day. I followed instructions, avoided salt, and tried to keep my worries to myself. But behind the curtain, I was constantly tense. My heart would race over small problems. I felt edgy, irritable, and often restless, even on days when nothing bad had happened. And what's worse, I couldn't turn it off. My body was always in fight or flight mode, and I didn't know how to step out of it until I discovered something strange. My thoughts were feeding my stress more than anything else. And once I changed those thoughts through daily gratitude, the stress began to shrink. The day I questioned the pills that happened during a routine visit, my doctor looked over my charts, nodded at the improvements in my blood pressure, and asked, "Have you been under less stress lately?" I laughed out loud. Me? Less stressed? I still worry about my health, my kids, my savings, my back pain. I'm retired but somehow still anxious every day. He leaned forward, then said something I'll never forget. You're taking all the right medications, but stress is a mental script. Pills can't rewrite your thoughts. That hit me hard. I was expecting the meds to do all the work, but I hadn't addressed the root of my stress. The constant, low-level fear that something was about to go wrong, and that fear wasn't coming from my body. It was coming from my mind. Gratitude interrupted my mental loops. See, I had a habit of rehearsing bad things. Every morning, I'd wake up and start scanning for problems. Is my knee hurting more today? Did I forget to pay that bill? Did my daughter sound distant on the phone yesterday? My brain was trained to search for threats, even when none existed, and just like muscle memory, those thoughts ran on autopilot. But when I started practicing gratitude, writing one thing down every morning, something shifted. Instead of looking for danger, I started looking for good. The sun feels warm through the window. I slept without waking up last night. The coffee tastes just right. It was subtle at first, but over a few weeks, I noticed that my mind stopped jumping straight to fear and began noticing moments of peace instead. I wasn't cured overnight, but gratitude gave me a tool to interrupt the cycle. A moment of pause where panic usually lived, and with every pause, the stress got smaller. The neuroscience behind why this works, I dug into the science because I needed proof, and here's what I found. Gratitude activates the brain's calming centers, particularly the prefrontal cortex and the ventral tegmental area, the reward circuitry. These areas reduce the production of cortisol, your main stress hormone, and increase dopamine, your brain's feel-good messenger. When you focus on appreciation, your nervous system shifts from sympathetic mode, stress, fear, urgency, into parasympathetic mode, rest. Digestion. And this isn't theory, it's measurable. People who keep a daily gratitude journal show lower levels of cortisol, better heart rate, variability, a sign of nervous system balance, fewer inflammatory markers, better mood and emotional stability. I didn't understand all the biology at the time, but I felt the result, and that was enough. Stress wasn't gone, but it wasn't in control anymore. I still had stressful days, but now, instead of reacting with panic, I had space. A moment to breathe, a thought that grounded me, a sentence in my mind that whispered, "Look what's still good." That shift gave me a new kind of power. The power to choose how I interpreted my day. For example, when my knee flared up, I focused on how lucky I was to still walk. When I forgot a name, I reminded myself of how sharp my memory had been during last week's card game. When bills piled up, I focused on the fact that I still had a roof, warmth, and food. These weren't illusions. They were also truths, ones I had previously ignored because I was addicted to spotting problems. I replaced worry rituals with gratitude rituals. I realized that I had created routines around stress. I'd wake up and check the news, bad idea. I'd go to bed thinking about what went wrong that day. I'd scroll through the past in my mind, reliving arguments or regrets, so I made a conscious choice. Replace those moments with gratitude rituals. Here's what I changed. Morning routine. Instead of news, I opened my notebook and wrote 3 things I was thankful for. Simple, no pressure to be profound. Mealtimes. Before eating, I paused to say thank you, not out loud, but in my heart. Thankful for the food, for my hands, for the time to enjoy it. Evening wind down. I stopped letting negative thoughts be the last thing I heard. Instead, I recalled one positive moment from the day, even if it was tiny. These swaps took only minutes, but they rewired how I entered and exited my day. I needed fewer medications over time after about 8 months of consistent gratitude practice. I noticed something shocking. My doctor gradually reduced one of my blood pressure medications. My resting heart rate was down. My sleep was better. My digestion had improved. Even my headaches became less frequent. He asked, "Have you started a new exercise routine?" "No," I said, "but I stopped letting my brain beat me up all day." That got a smile from him. And it got me thinking. Maybe health isn't always about adding more pills, more tests, more restrictions. Maybe it's about removing the constant stress that clogs the system, and gratitude did that for me. Without a prescription. The surprising side effects of perspective. What I didn't expect was how this change in perspective spilled over into other areas. I became more patient with others. Little things didn't irritate me like they used to. I started enjoying simple tasks again. Washing dishes became a mindful, peaceful moment. I forgave people faster. Grudges lost their grip when I focused on what I still had. I felt more hope about the future. Not because it was perfect, but because I felt equipped to face it. This didn't happen from therapy, meditation, or medication, though all of those can be helpful. It happened because I retrained my focus from fear to appreciation. And every time I practiced gratitude, it was like taking a vitamin for my soul. You can't always control stress, but you can control what you feed at my age. Stress doesn't disappear. There are still aches, worries, bills, and uncertain tomorrows. But I no longer feed the fire. Gratitude gave me a new lens, one that filters the noise, and lets me see what's still beautiful. And for me, that made all the difference. The 3-minute morning habit that changed my brain. It's not journaling, it's not meditation, it's something simpler, and I've done it every day since. I used to think my mornings were set in stone. Wake up, groan at the stiffness in my knees, shuffle to the bathroom, put the kettle on, and then, sigh, another day. Same routine, same worries waiting for me. I wasn't miserable, but I wasn't alive either, until one morning just like that, I decided to try something different. And no, it wasn't meditation, it wasn't yoga, it wasn't some 10-step wellness ritual from the internet. It was a tiny habit that took exactly 3 minutes, cost me nothing, and changed the way my brain worked and the way my heart felt. That habit? Saying thank you, but not the way you think. Let me explain. The morning that changed everything. I'd read something online, a quote, I think, that said, "Start your day with thanks, and the day will thank you back." It sounded poetic, maybe even a bit cheesy, but something about it stuck with me. So the next morning, before I even got out of bed, I whispered to myself, "Thank you." Not to anyone in particular, not for anything grand. Just, thank you. And then I thought about 3 specific things I was grateful for. Not big, dramatic things. Just whatever came to mind. The feeling of a warm blanket. The sound of rain on the window. The fact that I was still breathing. I sat with each one for a few seconds, letting it soak in, and then I stood up. That day felt lighter. Not because the world changed, but because I had changed before the world even had a chance to reach me. What it did to my brain after a week of doing this. Just 3 minutes each morning, I noticed something unusual. I didn't reach for my phone first thing anymore. I wasn't immediately bombarded with bad news or complaints or aches. Instead, my mind started the day in calm, not chaos. So I did a little digging into the science of this. Here's what I found. The reticular activating system in the brain RAS is like a filter. It notices what you focus on. So if you wake up thinking of problems, your brain finds more of them all day. But when you start with gratitude, your RAS filters the world through that lens. And suddenly, you begin to notice what's good. It's not magic, it's biology. That 3-minute ritual was literally rewiring my focus system. And it wasn't just about what I saw, it was about how I felt. My 3-minute gratitude habit step by step. Let me share exactly what I do, because it's so simple. You might overlook it, but don't. Simplicity is the secret here. Step 1. Before I move, I breathe as soon as I wake up. I don't jump up. I don't check the time. I take one deep breath and say silently, "Thank you for another day." Just that. One sentence. I let it settle before doing anything else. Step 2. I name 3 things I'm grateful for still lying in bed. I let my mind bring up 3 real, present moment gratitude. Not things I should be thankful for, but things I actually feel thankful for. They're often small. My shoulder doesn't hurt this morning. I have time to enjoy my coffee slowly. The birds are singing outside. The trick is to feel it, not just say it. Even for 5 to 10 seconds each. Step 3. I set an intention, optional, but powerful if I have time. I silently choose one word or phrase to guide my day. Something like peace, patience, connection, slow and steady. I don't force anything. I just let it come naturally. That's it. 3 minutes total. And yet it frames the next 15 hours of my life. The benefits I didn't expect. I originally hoped this habit might lift my mood a bit. What I didn't expect was the cascade of benefits that followed. 1. I became less reactive before a rude driver or a forgotten item would ruin my morning. No, calmer. I recover faster. Gratitude doesn't make problems disappear. It just makes me bigger than them. 2. I was nicer to people. Funny thing, when you start your day in appreciation, you greet the world differently. I smiled more. I listened better. I became more generous, not just with others, but with myself. 3. My energy lasted longer. Stress is draining, but gratitude, it fuels you. I found myself more focused during chores, more motivated to walk, and less tempted to crawl back into bed mid-morning. 4. I became more present instead of rushing through breakfast or brushing my teeth on autopilot. I started noticing textures, sounds, even flavors. Life got richer not because it changed, but because I was finally paying attention. Why it works so fast, especially after 65. When you're over 65, your neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to change may be slower, but it's still there. And because we've had decades of routine, even the smallest shift can cause a ripple. The morning is especially powerful because it sets the tone for everything else. Gratitude in the morning acts like a mental immune system. It helps you resist negativity, irritation, fear, and worry before they even start. And unlike pills, it has no side effects. What if you wake up in a bad mood? Trust me, I do too. Sometimes, there are mornings when my joints scream, when the news is heavy, when I feel alone. But that's exactly when this habit matters most. On those days, I still find one thing: the way the blanket warms my feet, the breath in my lungs, the fact that I made it through the night. Gratitude doesn't ignore hardship. It just makes room for something else alongside it. That's the power. It's now my favorite part of the day. Funny, isn't it? The thing that used to be my least favorite mornings is now something I look forward to, because I've made it mine. I've claimed it. No TV, no noisy. Just a few quiet moments of truth, and the truth is, there's always something to be thankful for, even if it's just the fact that I'm here. So if your mornings feel heavy, try this. Just 3 minutes, 1 breath, 3 things, 1 word. It could be the simplest, strongest health practice you've never tried. It was for me. Why grateful people live longer, and why I believe I will. The science backs it up, but so does my own story. Gratitude is more than emotion, it's survival. When I was younger, I thought living longer meant staying out of the hospital, avoiding cigarettes, and eating less sugar. And while those things matter, no one ever told me the secret that I now believe is just as important, maybe even more. Gratitude. Yes, gratitude. The simple act of noticing, appreciating, and feeling thankful for what you have. Even when life isn't perfect, especially when life isn't perfect. I used to think it was just a nice emotion, a way to be polite, humble, or spiritual. But today, at age 71, I understand it's much more than that. Gratitude, I believe, is one of the most powerful tools we have for longevity, mental resilience, and physical strength. And if I get to live 10 or 15 more healthy years, I believe gratitude will be one of the main reasons why. Let me tell you why I believe that, and what the science says too. What I started noticing in myself when I began practicing daily gratitude, just writing down or speaking 3 things I was thankful for every morning. I felt the difference almost immediately, but the real impact wasn't just emotional, it was physical. My blood pressure normalized. I slept deeper. My digestion improved. I started walking more, not out of obligation, but because I had more energy. Even my posture changed. I carried myself with more confidence and purpose. That slumped-over shuffle I used to walk with, it slowly began to fade. I didn't feel so old anymore. And as I kept up the habit one day at a time, 1 page at a time, I started to understand something deeper. I was no longer simply surviving each day. I was extending it. What science says about gratitude and longevity. One afternoon, I fell down a rabbit hole of research online. What I found amazed me because it validated everything I had been experiencing. Numerous studies have now confirmed that gratitude isn't just a mental practice, it's a biological intervention. Here's what scientists have found. 1. Lower inflammation equals lower disease. Risk chronic inflammation is now linked to heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, even Alzheimer's. Gratitude reduces markers of inflammation, including C-reactive protein, CRP. By lowering stress hormones like cortisol, lower inflammation means less arterial damage, better immune response, slower aging on a cellular level too. Improved sleep equals longer lifespans. Sleep quality is one of the most powerful predictors of how long you'll live, and people who regularly practice gratitude fall asleep faster, wake up less during the night, feel more refreshed, stay rested, body heals better, thinks clearer, and ages more gracefully. 3. Better heart health. Grateful people have lower resting heart rates, lower blood pressure, improved heart rate variability. Study from the University of California showed that patients with heart failure who kept a gratitude journal for 8 weeks had significantly better cardiac function than those Who didn't? For stronger relationships equals longer life. One of the longest-running studies on longevity, the Harvard study of adult development, found that the quality of your relationships is more important than cholesterol levels when it comes to lifespan. And gratitude, it strengthens relationships. It makes us more forgiving, more connected, more empathetic. It helps people feel seen, valued, and loved. The elders who lived the longest all shared this as part of my personal curiosity. I began reading stories of centenarians, people who lived past 100. I wanted to see what they had in common. Some ate meat, some didn't, some exercised daily, others took casual walks. But there was one thread I kept finding again and again. They were grateful, not just for their health, but for their families, their routines, their pets, the sun, the air, even the hardship they endured. One woman from Okinawa, Japan, age 102, said something that stuck with me. I smile because I have air in my lungs. I'm lucky, that's enough. Simple, but deeply profound. Why I believe gratitude keeps me going faced challenges physically, emotionally, and spiritually. There have been surgeries, loss, loneliness, and days where I thought, I can't do this anymore. But every time I sat down to write just one line, I'm thankful for the sound of birds outside, or I'm grateful I could get out of bed on my own, I felt something inside me shift. That shift, I believe, is what keeps me alive. Because here's the truth. The body follows the mind. When the mind is fearful, angry, and bitter, the body becomes tense, exhausted, and inflamed. But when the mind is open, thankful, and hopeful, the body softens. It restores. It repairs. I truly believe I've added years to my life, and certainly quality to those years, through the daily, quiet, personal act of gratitude. What I'll keep doing until my final day. People ask me, what's your routine now that you're older? And I always say, I move when I can. I eat with care. I rest without guilt. And every single morning, without fail, I say thank you, not out of obligation, but because I've learned that a grateful heart ages slower. Gratitude makes you present, and being present means you're fully alive. So whether I live to 80, 90, or beyond, I know I'll wake up each day and begin the same way. Thank you for one more sunrise. Because really, what else do we need to start a good day? My challenge to you, if you've watched this far, then I believe you feel it too, that longing for more than just extra years, but better years. So let me offer you this challenge. The same one I gave myself for the next 30 days. Each morning, write down one thing you're grateful for. It could be the smell of coffee, a call from your daughter, the softness of your pillow, a breeze through the curtain. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. And if you do that, just that, I believe you'll begin to notice what I did. Your mood will lift, your stress will shrink, your body will feel lighter, and your days, they'll start to stretch. Because gratitude is more than emotion, it's survival, and it may be the very thing that adds years and meaning to your life.